live, you are live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on the Sunset Safari. You're here with Brian Joubert on camera, and you're on a live safari here in the midst of the Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry, and that is a tiny little herd of elephants over there. I'm whispering because they are so very close to us. Just 2.5 meters, and already the sound of my voice is slightly disturbing her. So I'm just going to be quiet. Let's just enjoy this. They're only about 2.5 meters, maybe 10 feet from us. That's all. That's an adult cow. Her new youngster, only about 1.5 months old. And then either a sibling or her eldest child, the next one along. And behind that, definitely a youngster from a previous birth. This is just too magnificent. Over the last little while, we've gained the trust of this cow and the rest of her little herd. It's just her. She's missing the bottom third of her trunk. Doesn't seem to affect her at all. You can see she's got that gap in her, not gap, that groove cut into the top of her left tusk. And that's what she uses sometimes to break off branches. Now she's watching us. She's listening carefully to my voice. So I'm just going to be quiet briefly. So if you watch her carefully, she's listening to the sound of my voice. She's not afraid. Now she's trying to smell us with that slightly odd-looking trunk. And the wind is blowing over the top of us, straight into her, which means that they can smell us. They know exactly what our smell is. And often animals are afraid of our human scent. But over the course of the last few months, we've gained the trust of this wonderful elephant, this brave elephant cow, and her 3 companions. It's just so special. Now, we didn't park here, we parked some distance away, and they slowly grazed towards us. They're loving the new growth on this clearing as a result of the rain we've had. They're loving the string of stars flowers, that's what she's eating, and also a grass called Eurocloa, for what it's worth, or signal grass. And look at the little one. It's definitely nowhere close to weaning yet, but trying, smelling us, trying to eat the grass. So close to us now. That little one is, that little one, look how close she is. She's only about 3 feet from us now. And her sibling, or uncle, is eating devil's thorn. That's what those plants are. I can speak a little bit more normally now. She's moved away. I didn't stop because I felt any sense of threat. I only started whispering simply because as she heard my voice, she stopped feeding. And she lifted her head, and I'm sure you could see how she did that. And she was very clearly listening to what I was saying. I don't mean she was listening to the words, obviously. I just mean that she was listening to the tone of my voice. So, you are on the live safari, as I said. My name is James Hendry. Brian's on camera. I've forgotten what I've told you so far. This has been so exciting. But by live safari, I mean we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions, any comments at all, talk to us on the YouTube chat stream. Talk to us on Twitter, #SafariLive, or email us questions at WildEarthTV. I'm becoming so excited by these elephants that I'm unable to think clearly. There they go. That little ball of cameras there that you have in front of you is the virtual reality rig. And what that's doing is taking a spherical picture of what we're looking at now. So if you ever do watch the sighting in virtual reality, you'll be able to look back at me or at that magnificent elephant standing not 3 feet from that ball of cameras. You'll be able to look at the cloudless sky above and, of course, the magnificent specimen that is Brian Joubert on camera just behind me. Now, the other on the other vehicle today, if we can get her going, Wendy is having a few running repairs done, will be Sam for his world premiere. He has done an interview, but that doesn't really count as a world premiere, so it'll be his world premiere this afternoon. He'll be filmed by Jean Drey, he of the broken foot. You must ask him to tell you that story. It's very funny. Well, for everyone else, it's very funny. And in the final control, Kirsten McLennan-Smith back on the vocals, and Rebecca on the keys. Okay, now those elephants are reacting like this because they can hear domestic dogs. Now these are the domestic dogs of the general manager here, and I don't know what they're barking at, but that's what the elephants can hear. That's what they're trying to smell. That's why they stopped moving. You can hear every time, I don't know if you can hear the dogs, but every time one of them makes a noise, the elephants twitch their noses towards where the sound's coming from. Now, hello, Smiles, you're on Twitter, and much the same as Brian Joubert's first observation was here. You say that the little one looks like it's got a poop stain on its head. Smiles, it could be a poop stain. I mean, it may have been standing in an opportune position at some stage during the day while one of its siblings, or indeed its mother, let fly with a great big ball of dung. But also, I have seen them down at the waterhole at the Djuma pan, and perhaps he was rubbing his head. I'm going to call him a he just because I can't tell the difference, and saying he and she every single time I use the term becomes irksome. So you will find that he will bash his head into the mud every so often, and that will leave those kind of stains. But I do agree, it looks like it could be two distinct balls of fresh, wet elephant dung that landed on that little one's head. What an incredible sighting to start off our afternoon safari with. The best part of that, of course, is that slowly their trust has been gained. And slowly they're just starting to completely ignore us when we're around them. As I said this morning, you don't want them ever to sort of cross that line and come and investigate you, but you just want them to kind of walk around you and behave as they would normally if you weren't there. And that is the best possible way to be viewing animals. Which puts us at roughly 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And we are, of course, at the very end of what has been a particularly poor rainy season. But you can see the sky remains cloudless almost, but for a couple of wispy white clouds up high. And the other thing you got a view of there, of course, was my spanky new hat. There it is. Of hatsmanship, Brian.
So spanky and new.
So spanky and new. I'm so camouflaged now, Brian struggles to see me.
It's true.
Unless I look at him. Right, so these elephants have now moved on to different kinds of here. Over there, well, they're the elephants, of course, on the left, but you can see that white ball. Now, that is a balloon, believe it or not, a large white balloon. It is filled with helium gas, which is enormous fun to play with, but other than the fact that it's fun to play with and makes you sound like a chipmunk, it is there because it is hopefully one day going to carry a repeater on it. So instead of having to build big towers, we just send up a balloon like that, and there will be a repeater hanging off it, and the signal will bounce off the vehicle to the balloon repeater and then to the final control. And so it's one step closer to becoming a completely mobile operation, which ideally is what we want to be one day. Of course, it is slightly unsightly having a giant big bubblegum bubble on the middle of quarantine clearings, but normally it's so high in the air you can barely see it. I'm just going to move again, get round the front of these elephants. And thank you all for your very kind compliments for my new hat. I have forgotten the term for a hat maker. It's a wonderful term. So I'm going to ask Kirsten to look it up for me, or maybe you can tell Kirsten, and she will tell me. What is a hat maker? Do you remember what it's called? There's a special word for a hat maker. So please send it in. Kirsten says she can't be bothered to look it up on Google. So please tell her. Aren't they wonderful? It always fills me with such happiness when I come out and this little herd of 4 is on the quarantine clearings. Throwing some mud on themselves. Thank you, Jen B. A milliner. A milliner or millinery is someone who makes hats. So the milliner or millinery who made my spanky new hat, I suspect, was a fairly rural Chinese person. It was indeed a rural Chinese person, somewhere in the depths of the People's Republic of China. So whoever they were, very skilled indeed. It's not an exotic sort of hat from Milan or from the, the iconic haute couture of Paris. So let's just see what these elephants do. The rest of the plan for the afternoon is going to be to go and see if we can find the lions that we managed to lose during the course of the morning. Now this, of course, is slightly embarrassing. We went to go and look for some elephants when the lions went flat and asleep, returned 5 minutes later, only to find that the lions had disappeared. Now we think we have an idea as to where they are, and I was going to go there straight away, but the elephants are here, so I just thought we'd enjoy them for a little while first. Sam will go and look for the lions, and we'll go and give him a hand once we've finished with the elephants here. And of course, if we do find the lions at this stage of the day, they're highly likely to be doing absolutely nothing. So they will be best viewed when it cools down a little bit. They gave us some pretty good entertainment this morning. They weren't completely flat all the time. That's the Nkuhuma Pride. And for those of you who are perhaps new viewers, the Nkuhuma Pride provides the bulk of our lion viewing here, 5 lionesses. And what's so fun about them, of course, is that they're all pretty easily identified. We've got amber eyes, we've got the slightly slitty-eyed female, then there's a sub-adult, there's a slightly younger one, and an old girl with a completely black nose. And so they are all quite easily identifiable, but sometimes lions can be quite difficult to identify from each other. And of course, as Safari Live goes along, so these characters develop, and many of you have been watching for a number of years, and you followed the lives of the animals that we watch here, specifically the territorial ones who we see very often. And I know that you've developed real kind of virtual, well, they're not even virtual, I mean, they're real relationships with Karula, our famous Queen of Djuma, the leopard, with Shadow, her daughter, with Mvula and Tingana, the 2 males we see most often, with the lions, the 2 Matimba boys who were ousted earlier this year in a traumatic takeover, now the Birmingham boys. And it's just a wonderful opportunity, this, where if you're on a normal safari, of course, you have an incredible time for 2 or 3 days, and then the lives of those animals continue, and you go off back to whatever it is that you do. But our wonderful loyal viewers have the opportunity to watch and interact with these animals all the time, 6 hours a day, live from the Greater Kruger National Park. And I just think that it's a unique concept, and it's a wonderful concept that we're able to bring you. And we do so enjoy interacting with people from all over the world. Fiji, Finland, Hawaii, the entire continental United States. Couple from Britain We've had some Dutch, we've had a no, what's it? We've had a Serbia recently. Wonderful stuff. And of course, our own South Africans. What a wonderful question from Trayvon. You're on Twitter. I don't think we've heard your name before, Trayvon, so if this is your first time talking to us, thank you very much, first of all, for your time, and secondly, for taking the time and the effort to interact with us. A good question. You want to know how or if elephants have ever been used domestically, and they look pretty chilled, you say, so could they be put to domestic work, perhaps? Not these ones, obviously. There have been attempts to domesticate African elephants, and I mean, there are some safaris where you can ride African elephants. I'm not convinced of the ethical nature of those safaris, but it is possible. They, from a purely practical point of view, unlike their Indian or Asian cousins, they need to eat a huge amount more than their Indian cousins, which means that the amount of time that they have available for labor is a lot less than their Asian cousins. Now, the most famous example of elephant domestication, of course, was Hannibal. And Hannibal the Carthaginian marched over the Alps with a team of African elephants, and he eventually meant to take Rome with them. He was eventually stopped. I think it was by Pompey, the Roman general. I think he stopped Hannibal before he could take Rome. I think that's correct. But that's the most famous example of them being domesticated. But they're not that chilled out here. I know they look chilled, and there are many animals out here that look a lot more relaxed than they are around, or not. They look a lot more relaxed than they necessarily are because we're in vehicles. They're used to vehicles, they're habituated to the vehicles. On foot, this would be a very different story. So if I was to get out of the car and walk towards those elephants, they would probably run away. That cow might turn and face me. She might become extremely angry and chase me. But they would react completely differently to the way that they are at the moment. So domestic elephants, or elephants that have been domesticated, have normally been domesticated from when they're very young. It's a nice question, thank you for that. Right, let's move on a little bit from here. I think we'll have one more view of the Ellies, and then let's go and see if we can't find the lions. I'm just going to give them a bit of a wide berth so I don't make a noise. I'm going to go under this tree. Beautiful trees, shining green in the light. They are the silver cluster leaves. Hello, Miss Lynn. A nice question from you too. You're in North Carolina. That is in America, for those of you who don't know. Miss Lynn, you want to know how many individuals it takes to make a herd, and will this herd get any bigger? Well, Miss Lynn, I mean, it takes 2 individuals to make a herd, basically. Any group of elephants you're going to call a herd, because you wouldn't call it anything else. So it would only be 2 elephants. Will this one get bigger, or would they join another herd? They could join another herd if the water and food became very concentrated, and then they might join up with another herd, but they would remain or retain their social cohesion as just the 4 of them. Now, it's possible that another elephant or 2 might join them, but it is equally possible that they will remain like this, and the herd will just be augmented by them breeding. Now, from what I can see, the 2 youngsters, the 2 not very little ones, so the 2 not infants, are both young bulls, I think. I might be wrong, but it looks to me like they're both young bulls. Difficult to tell when they're this age. And that means that obviously they are not going to help to augment the size of this herd. But if they were cows, they would eventually reach sexual maturity, a bull would come and mate with them, and then their offspring would form part of this herd. Now, obviously with a gestation period of 22 months and a first breeding age of 9 years old at the very earliest, it's highly unlikely that any of us would be around. Well, I mean, it's unlikely that we'd all be around to see this herd get a huge amount bigger. But it would slowly, over the years and over the decades, become larger. And that's basically how it would happen. But it doesn't preclude, maybe, I mean, it's quite possible. They're not like lions where, a strange lion would never try and join another pride, even if she was on her own. But if a herd, say a cow lost the rest of her herd, she may well find this lot together and they may well join up. But normally a herd structure consists of a female and relations, cousins or siblings, depending on how old the herd is, and their offspring. That's basically how a herd works. So even if you have something like a group of monkeys, a troop of monkeys, if it's only 2 of them, you'd still refer to it as a troop. It is the most gorgeous afternoon. It's not, a couple of weeks ago we wouldn't have been sitting out in the sun like this, would we, Brian?
No.
Certainly not without complaining bitterly, but the temperature is so lovely now, and that's why the end of March, April and May are they're not my favourite months necessarily, but they're 2 of my favourite months, simply because you have these wonderful days that aren't too short yet, and the temperature is delicious from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. And you can, of course, also put a duvet over you in the night time. Well, a light blanket. Because for 4 months, we've all been lying on our beds with nothing covering us, trying desperately to stay cool enough to have a snooze. You can see them not eating so much grass, but taking real advantage of the other forbs, the other herbaceous plants that are growing here, the strings of stars, the devil's thorns, and various other kinds of, I suppose, what would be referred to as weeds if they were growing in your garden, but here they'd be referred to as forbs or wild flowers. That's interesting. Gene in North Carolina, I don't think you're the Gene I know personally in North Carolina, but I'm very glad to know you virtually, Gene, in North Carolina. You want to know about that white balloon and how will the animals interact with it? I would say not at all. Remember, many of the animals, I guess, are a bit like horses out here. So, I mean, if you shake a plastic bag at a horse, it's normally going to run away or shy. And I think you'll find the animals doing exactly the same thing. It's a big, shiny white thing, and I don't think any animals are going to go up to it and touch it. I think they'll give it a very wide berth indeed. You might find a hyena goes and gives it a sniff or 2, but I think it's high enough off the ground for them not to be able to get at it. Although I suppose they could pull the string and pull it down. I think those would be the only things that I'd be worried about giving it a real bite, would be some hyenas. Maybe lions as well, but I wouldn't say anything else will go anywhere near it. I think even baboons would be quite nervous of it. They would eventually get over their nerves, of course, but as we know, there are not a lot of baboons in this particular region of the Sabi Sands. I think all the herbivores, the wildebeest, the impala, the zebras, the elephants too, will give it a very wide berth. Thank you, Jean, for that. The little one, it always astounds me, and everybody, I suppose, how it is that those little elephants don't get stomped on. Velma, you're in Michigan, which I imagine is experiencing something of a relief from the winter at this stage, which must be wonderful. I've always thought Michigan sounds like a pretty cold place to be. So as we get cooler, Michigan will be getting warmer. And Velma, you want to know what's the survival rate of an elephant calf like that in comparison with, say, a lion or leopard cub? The answer is quite a lot higher. So only about 10% of male cubs born make it to adulthood to dominate a territory. That's 1 in 10 male cubs. That's lions. Leopards, it might be slightly higher than that, maybe 15 to 20%. I'd say you'd find that with elephants, because they have the protection of this herd, and of course the herd is not something that any other animals are going to have a go at unless they're seriously isolated or seriously ill. Because of the protection afforded by the herd, you'll find that that little one, I'd say, has at least a 60% chance of reaching adulthood. That's a very nice question. And it just goes to show that, well, first of all, size, and secondly, protection in numbers are the best ways to go out here if you want to survive. Generally, all the predators will have a much lower survival rate than, look at that little thing trying to use his trunk. Tim, you're in Arkansas. I'm just laughing at that little baby there. You want to know how or what age they'll be weaned. An elephant will normally be weaned, Tim, at about 2 years. But they'll start eating grass a lot before that. Yeah, just learning to use the trunk there, you can see, just managing to pick up one solitary piece of grass. Now, of course, when I first saw the mother, I thought there's no way she'd be able to pick up one piece of grass with that trunk. She's lost the prehensile or finger-like tip to that trunk, but she is able to. I watched her do it just before you came live. She picked up an individual grass stalk and put it in her mouth. So she uses it like a vacuum cleaner or a hoover, that big trunk. And of course the muscles are like concertinas, so she can extend it down to the ground. Where the others just kind of flop their trunks onto the ground, she can push it down onto the ground. And every so often when she blows out, there's quite a lot of moisture that flows out of her trunk. And I don't see that in many of the other elephants. Maybe it's just the fact that she's inhaling quite a lot of dust, or like Brian, her sinuses object to the amount of pollen that there is in the air at the moment. How are you doing today, Brian?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Good. So just before Tim's question, I was trying to get across to you that all of the animals out here, even impala, they've got about a 50% survival rate into their first birthday, and probably, say, 50% again into, well, maybe 30 or 40%. This is how it happened. Watch. There we go. That is precisely how we got the poop marks on the skull. Delicious. Anyway, like I was saying, even impala probably have got about a 30 to 40% chance of reaching adulthood. No, maybe a 30% chance of reaching adulthood. But all of the predators have a much reduced chance because they tend to be a lot more territorial, and life is a lot tougher as a predator. Is it eating the poo-poo? Now, this is interesting. As Brian has pointed out, that little elephant is putting its nose into its mother's poop and eating it. Now, you will never, well, you'd hardly ever find a carnivore doing the same thing. But remember, an elephant's dung is hardly digested at all, so there's still a lot of good nutrition in that. But the main importance and reason for this little elephant to be tasting its mother's poop is that it is filled with bacteria, good bacteria that the little elephant will need to line its gut with in order that it too may digest plant material once it has weaned. Look at those little ears flapping like a sort of miniature Dumbo. And you'll find that with all ruminants, all herbivores basically, which need bacteria in the gut to digest the indigestible parts of plants like cellulose and lignin. They will all have to get that dung from, at least get that bacteria from the dung of other members of the same species. Even termites will eat each other's dung in order to line the gut. Very, very, very few organisms have got the enzymes themselves, or produce the enzymes themselves to digest plant material. Amazing little herd. And they will all look after this little one. You'll see how the little one feels very comfortable around all of them. Constantly going up and saying hi and putting its trunk in their mouths. That's how they say hi. Right, as those elephants disappear off towards the western horizon, we are going to disappear too and leave you in the capable, excited, and strangely hatted form of Sam Chevalier.
Good afternoon, everyone. How exciting to be back in the Sabi Sands with you all today. Wow, jeepers, I feel like I'm in the hot seat again. It's great to be back with this ecology, with the people that I met a few weeks ago, and how exciting it was to get the email to say, you have an opportunity to be back in the Sabi Sands, in the most beautiful part of the country that where I first learnt about ecology and everything. And it's such a privilege to be back here and with you. Here we are sitting with buffalo, and this is actually the first place where I started on my interview. I must say that was when I was so nervous. I was so nervous when that first live scenario came on me. It was 3, 2, 1. Sam, you are live, you are live. And now it's happened again at the same dam with the beautiful buffaloes just ahead of us here. You can see there's a number of them in there at the moment. Earlier today I was just on the other side there with James. I just want to mention to James, he has been incredible during my time here, from the interview to this moment. He's helped me, and this morning he really gave me the opportunity to build confidence and grow into this space. And I heard you just had an amazing sighting with him, with the young elephants on the other side. That's great. James, thank you very much for all of that. But here we are with the buffs, and you could see it's been an exceptionally hot afternoon. I don't really know what it's been like since I was last here, but as you can see, it is so green here. I mean, the last time I was here, it was completely dry, and there was nothing in there. And we did a rain dance, myself, James, and I think it was it Dave? I think it was Dave. And we did a rain dance the night before, and when we did that rain dance, James got me out the car, and I was dancing in front of a whole bunch of people that I'd never met, which was awesome. I really enjoyed that experience, and luck have it that there was rain that night. And the next day, I was welcomed by 2 beautiful hyenas in this watering hole, and it looked like they were the happiest creatures on the planet as they swam in this watering hole. And yes, so I was extremely lucky to have had that experience. But as we sit here, you can see that there's some buffalo just in the one next to us here, and I've been told the dam cam is just here. So this must be the place where all the viewers around the world are watching the bush every single day. And I must say I was watching every day myself, or when I could, and I really, really enjoyed watching this watering hole. And I've heard some great stories that have been had at this watering hole over the last few months. But so this is an incredible encounter. I'm really excited to be back in the northeast of South Africa, back at the home of the buffalo, lions, leopards, and butterflies, and everything that comes with this ecology. With that, I'm going to say thank you so much to these buffs who are sitting here in the heat and just cooling themselves off. You can see that they're oxpeckers that are flying around there, eating off the parasites that are on the buffs. And this is a cleaning process for the buffalo. So they're having a beautiful bath as well as a clean from the oxpeckers. And with that, we're going to go off into I think that's the east, and we're going to go and see what we can find. I'm ready to go. I hope you're ready to join me on my first drive at Wild Earth, South Africa. Oof. I'm so glad I managed to get on drive. Earlier I was told that I wasn't going to be able to go on drive because the vehicle, Wendy. This is Wendy. Wasn't feeling so well this afternoon, and cheapers, I was quite upset because I was getting all ready and excited for my first drive for WildEarthTV. So here I am, finally driving, and I'm super excited because I saw next to me was James's hat. And as you can see on top of my head, I have my lucky hat with me, which is my bush hat. And it's been with me from the first ever entered the bush. My dad bought it for me, and I've just loved it and cherished it. And here we are with James's hat. So I feel very lucky today, and hopefully we'll come across something out there. It's answering you, and we can have an interactive experience. It's everything. I've only just, I hadn't been in the bush for a long time since the interview, and even before that it had been a long time, about a year and a half since I entered the Sabi Sands, or even the bush for that matter. So at the moment, these buffalo that are sitting to the left of us, and we've got Chandre behind the camera today, and he's going to be doing my first drive, and I'm really excited. He drove me up from Joburg, and they're the buffs again, relaxing in the midday sun. This industry. And with that, guys, thank you so much for the first little viewing. We're going to link back to James. Enjoy the drive with James, and I'll see you just now.
Hello. I'm just looking at the road, frantically hoping that the lions have not crossed this road into a fiendish block over there, full of very thorny, prickly, thick things. And so far they haven't. Now, this morning, the lions went to sleep, as I said, and then because it wasn't very hot, they decided to do what lions don't ever do, and that's move after 9 o'clock in the morning. And I think, from what we can tell, that they went into the drainage line just to the northern side of where they were lying. So they were lying through this thicket to the right-hand side of your screen. Well, now it's dead straight in front of your screen. And between us and where they were this morning is a little drainage line, very shaded. They like to lie on the cooling sand during the middle of the day, and I suspect that they are in there. I do not see any sign of their tracks crossing this road, which is a good thing, because it is very, very thick up in there. But there have been lots of elephants walking up and down this road. That herd that we saw this morning was in here. And that means that they could have walked over the top of the lions. So if you don't mind, while we chat, I'm just going to keep looking at the ground, which is an odd thing to do unless you're tracking lions or something else. And we'll see what else we can find. Thank you for being so nice to Sam. He seems to be enjoying himself. And that means, of course, that hopefully you will enjoy yourselves too. There's a real strong smell of elephant dung around the place. Here he is. Here's the man himself. Hello.
Hi, James.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
How was your world premiere?
It was great.
Was it good?
It was a good start. I told them that I had your lucky cap.
Oh, thank you.
And I just felt like it brought me a little bit of luck.
Right, well, you carry on with my lucky cap then. That's excellent. Okay, no lion tracks?
Not that I've seen.
Okay, all right. Okay. Bye-bye. Good luck. Chandre, do tell them about your foot. I told them you would. That's called dropping a mate in it, as it were. Now, I don't know if Chandre is going to tell you about his foot, but it has to do with a high-lift jack, a faulty handbrake, and a little bit of hubris, I think, about that. That is an African migrant, everybody, my favorite mint-colored little butterfly. And it is eating from the blooms of Justicia flava. which is that tree. Well, it's not really a tree so much as a herbaceous plant, isn't it? Is it, Brian? And a butterfly has got a long proboscis on it, and that long proboscis will probe for nectar. I just think these are my favorite butterflies. They've been all over the place all of the summer, and they're just so lovely. Just a very subtle minty green. Ah, beautiful. Isn't that amazing? Just those two spots on the front wing and the hind wing. That's incredible. That's actually an amazing shot from the vehicle. You normally only get those sorts of shots on the bushwalk. You might even be able to see there if you've got a really good screen. Well, now that he's moved, you can't really, but that proboscis, that rolling, long, probing sort of mouth part, which is basically a modified tongue, that rolls up and then unfurls into the flowers from which they're seeking nectar. Beautiful. Okay, let's just stick our noses in here. I don't want to labour the point too much while the day is still so hot. But well, not so hot, but hot for lions. Just put our noses in here and look down into the drainage, and we might just spot the lions. Like I say, I haven't seen any of their tracks moving further than this point. Brian? That's Mary in Michigan, everybody. I would like to know, given that Brian has got allergies and suffers from allergies, pollen and that sort of thing, what time of year would be best for her to come and visit? When will she have the least allergies? Brian, when do you think?
I would say allergies generally run year-round.
Which just depends what you're allergic to.
Indeed. For me, I have the dust. The dust really affects my allergies, and everything kicks up dust all year round, so it's a tough one.
I think, for me, I also get allergies, but not as badly as Brian does. For me, it's the kind of pollen and stuff that does it for me. So, you know, if you can avoid the flowering season, then it's not too bad. But as Brian says, if dust is a problem for you, then the summer is going to be an issue. At least the winter's going to be an issue. I'm just going to stick my nose through here so we can look down into the drainage. Ease our way gently through here. See how we are easing, Brian. It's much easier to ease in Rusty than it is in Wendy, I must say. Right, I don't see anything in here. Now, what I'm going to do, while we are still live, is I'm just going to walk down into the drainage there and look down the way. Okay. So don't go anywhere. Please don't get off the vehicle, anyone. I am, in theory, trained to do this sort of thing. And then I will explain my logic when I get back. And you'll tell me if you lose levels, will you? Okay, that's Brian's thumb he's entertaining you with at the moment. So I'm going to be very quiet, just so that I can hear any rustling in the bushes. And I'm just going to look down into here. Does smell a bit dungish. Don't worry, anybody, I can't see anything just yet. Nor can I see any tracks. That is very odd. For it is precisely in here that the lions went. Oh, there they are. Got them. know, it doesn't matter how many times you do that. You see lions on foot, even if they're doing what that one did, and that one kind of just opened its eyes slowly and then shut it again. It's such a thrill. They're just down there in the drainage line. So we'll just pop down there, see if we can wangle Wendy in there and have a look. I don't think they're going to do much, so we probably won't spend too much time with them. But let's go and have a look, just to prove to you that I did find them. Okay, let's just ease our way down through here. If it does get a bit thick and unpleasant, we might try and go round from the other side. In fact, I'm just going to let's go down that way, the way I walk, because I think there's less of a bump. So, we had that question about elephants being chilled and lions being chilled perhaps, and how it is that we can possibly go and track them on foot. Because I know for a lot of our more seasoned viewers, the answer is obvious. You know that animals see us as predators. And so that's why it is relatively safe, if you're trained for this sort of thing, to go walking about trying to track lions on foot. Right, nasty thorns to the left, everybody. Please watch out. Brian, watch out over your head. Block the diff. And I was walking right here, and I looked up the drainage line, and behold, we might be stuck here for some time. You can just see them moving through there. You see them, Brian?
Yeah.
And that, I'm afraid, well, I mean, it's a really nice view, I suppose, for this time of the day, because it gives you an idea of what you'd be looking for if you were on foot. And that's what I saw. And they're calling to each other gently. Oh. Not the best view of lions that you'll ever get. Let me just call them in, and then we'll try and get one more view, maybe from the top or the other side. I'm not actually going to try and bash my way all the way through there. I think we'll get stuck and make a big noise. Stations relocated in Nkuhuma Pride. They are in the drainage line to the west of where they were this morning. Sorry, to the north of where they were this morning, just to the east of Mvubu Road. At the moment, visual is 1 out of 5. But they are moving around a bit, of course, which is unusual for lions. But the colour is lovely in there, and the dappled light I always find so very peaceful to look at. Brian, do you agree with my assessment that driving up there is probably going to make a horrible noise? Molly, you say James just about died to a lion on foot. Is that, did I hear you correctly, Molly? I didn't nearly die, Molly, don't worry. Much as I do enjoy this job and finding animals for you, I'm not really prepared to risk my life for it at this stage. It's just not that dangerous to track lions on foot, especially if you know them and if you know how to react to them. And I knew how they would react to me because I've seen them on foot before. So as long as I don't behave in too much of a threatening manner, they will normally just do exactly what they did. They looked up at me and then I moved away, and because I didn't push through, they didn't react at all. So Molly, no death was in no way about to happen there as far as I can tell. Of course, I may just be blissfully ignorant. All right, now there's no thorns here, everyone, so you can move these branches out of the way with your hands. Right there, Brian. Brian, of course, has to look after the camera, his face, and the aerial at the back. I just have to watch that I don't knock this extremely expensive VR rig at the front. There we go. We're out. Right. Thank goodness we're driving Rusty, Brian. If we'd been driving Wendy, that would have been the tyre. Okay, so this is where they were lying this morning. When we came back past here they were gone. We were greatly distressed and embarrassed, and they are just inside here in this thicket. I don't think we're going to get a good view, but we're going to try and just get a view. Yeah, we can see them from here. It's not going to be a great view though. There we go. There we go. Oops. One should turn the ignition off, shouldn't one? That's the best option. There we go. Phew. Well, there are the lions, everybody. A carpet of resplendent lions lying in the shade, in the dappled shade of a tambuti thicket. And they are chilled to the max. Panting a little because they're hot. And I think it was Lucy in Indiana this morning asked, could they be breathing heavily because the two of them are pregnant? And I had to answer, yes, that is quite possible indeed. Alrighty. I think we've probably got all we're going to out of this particular lion sighting. So I think we'll wait for them to move out of here, probably as it cools down a little bit later. So we'll go and see what else we can find. And while we're doing that, the inimitable Sam Chevalier has got some vegetation to show you, some pretty colourful vegetation.
Welcome back, everyone. Here I stand with a round-leaf teak, otherwise known as a Pterocarpus redundifolius. And I heard you just found the lions with James. That's epic news. I hope we can sit down together and chat about the lions a bit later. But while we're here, let's have a little look at this plant. This plant I got to know when I first started my training. Elephants love it. It's got such an easy tasting bark, and it is really good at wrapping its mouth around it and pulling all the bark off this whole twig. But here, as you can see, it's got very round leaves, and that's how you know it's a Pterocarpus redundifolius, otherwise known as the round-leaf teak. And as my passion is in biomimicry and learning more about the intelligence of the natural world, I like to see how this has intelligence. How does this tree collect its water and the sunlight and all those little things? And it's amazing. I mean, it really astonishes me when I think about how this is collecting its sunlight. Just have a look, if you can, at how this is collecting different shades of sunlight in the afternoon light. And you can imagine in the east, when the sun is rising from that direction, it's collecting sun on the other side of the leaf, and on the west it's going to collect here. So imagine our solar panels were like that. As we chatted in my interview drive, that's something that I'm very fascinated about, and even just the structure of the leaf itself and the way in which it has that design pattern I find is exceptionally interesting. And also just the way in which it captures water. You can see that it's coming out at all different angles and using it as a funnel to capture water. So not only can we sit here with this design and learn about its efficiency within the natural world, we can learn about how it is related to the ecology of the elephants and how it produces good food for the elephants and nutrition. So it's good to understand the soil type and the types of trees that come into your area, because that of course will define the type of ecology that lives here, from elephants to lions to klipspringer to little tiny bucks and geesbok and everything. So thanks. I really wanted to come say hello to the roundleaf teak, and we've done so. I'm just going to put it down, and we're going to head back on the road. Hopefully we can find something a little bit bigger, a little bit more interesting. No, not that that's not interesting. I think that is absolutely fascinating. But I'm excited to see if we can find any wilderness, any large animals. And I'm also just trying to to get used to the vehicle and the camera, as you know, that I'm looking at a whole bunch of people and trying to understand the complexity of the vehicle and everything. So it's taking its time, but you know what? I'm glad that I have you to help me through this experience. Let's head off back through that. Have a look in the distance, everyone. Look how beautiful that looks. Green on either side of the road. You can clearly see that it's been raining here over the last few weeks, and I mean, when I was here just a couple of weeks ago, it was raining. It hadn't rained in so long, and it's just incredible to see how quickly the bush can recover from such a drought and such a very, very dry part of its life. And that it has. How's it going? Are you good? Nice to see you, bro. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Do you see anything down there, bro? Do you see anything down? Nothing. Okay. Thanks, my boy.
Thanks.
When I was here a couple of years ago, I trained at Lionesses, and I got to know the Shangaan culture and the culture of people here, and I fell in love with them. Really, really kind and loving people, and I really connected with them, and it's so great to be back here with these. So much life experience and understanding of the bushveld. You know, that's something that I always felt that I missed when I was a youngster, is really learning about the natural world and living and being immersed in it, because I really find that ever since I started studying ecology, I found that the natural world had always brought so much interest to me. And it gave me a relationship to the world. Anyway, I just realized that I haven't had my headpiece in. So Kirsty, I'm coming back to you. And look.
Okay, we're just doing a quick look down in the drainage line here. Sorry you went black screen there. Wendy is being very naughty. I'm just going to, I think you're actually going to be able to see these things. You can see them from here, which means that we drove past them when we came past here. We didn't come past here, it wasn't us. Sam and Gendre, however, drove within 4 meters of them on their way out today. He'll be forgiven, of course. It is his first drive. Gendre, the foot, will not be forgiven, especially as they were on his side of the car. So they're actually only 4 meters from the road. Ruler tracks that Jamie was following this morning. Stations, this pride of lions is actually viewable from Nkuhuma Road in the drainage line. There's space for 2 vehicles now. Really nice picture of them lying in sweet, dappled light. Okay, that's enough of the lions for now. We'll come back here when it gets a little bit cooler, or Sam can come back when it gets a bit cooler, and we'll have a proper look at them as they get active for their night of hunting. I think we decided that they may have had a small meal last night, maybe an impala or something like that, and then they probably went hungry for the rest of the time. But we're going to head to the south now, back down towards a little place called Ingwe Alley, where Jamie did have tracks of Karula this morning, and also tracks of Tingana. Seemingly finished his consort with Thandi, also coming back north, so we might be lucky and pick them up sometime during the afternoon. I feel we've had a rather a blessed afternoon already. Elephants, lions, flowers, butterflies, impalas, buffalo, really quite an astonishing array. Trayvon, a very nice question from you about butterflies, and do they try to fly straight ever, and why do they seem to fly so erratically? I think you'll find that they seem to fly so erratically because they're so light. The slightest wind can affect the direction in which they're flying. and they have to adjust for that all the time. The fact that they are able to adjust for that absolutely blows my mind. I just can't believe that they have the skill and agility to be able to adapt to that kind of sort of delicate changes that they must make in their wings to fly. But definitely some of them can fly in straight lines. In fact, I'd say most of them can. And then if you think of those great migrations of monarch butterflies in Central America, I think they go all the way into North America, they definitely must be flying in pretty straight lines for them to get that far. I suppose they're also smaller, and so it does mean that the wind will affect them less than it would, say, if we had great big butterfly wings attached to ourselves. Lovely, lovely afternoon, I must say. So we're going to head down sort of along the Mulwati drainage line, and then we'll head towards Treehouse Dam and see if we can find anything that way in the way of Karula tracks or Tingana tracks. The Styx Pride, everybody, is on Arathusa at the moment, 3 of them. Their cubs are not being sort of shown to the Pride yet, so we know they do have cubs, but they haven't introduced them to the Pride yet, and that means that they're not really viewable yet. So I'm not going to leap across to Arathusa with great enthusiasm yet. We'll wait for the cubs to be introduced to the Pride. We have our own lions here, of course, and soon they too will have little cubs. And it is my firm opinion that a lion cub is the cutest thing in the bush. I believe it to be cuter than a leopard cub. Now I know that will to many of you be something of an irreligious statement. But yes, I'm afraid I do believe it to be true. Go, and I just still can't get over how green it has got since Brian and I went on our leave a little while back, and how much thicker the bush is. You really got to have a hard look into it. And of course, when Sam was here, we were doing that rain dance, that ridiculous third rain dance, I think it was, and it seems to have worked. So I clearly am not very good at bringing the rain. Sam is very good at bringing the rain. So the next time a rain dance is required, you'll have to ask him, I think. Right, Sam has a bird. Let's go and see what it is.
Welcome back, everyone. Had a little blank screen earlier, so we're back now with a magpie shrike. And that's exciting for me because today I am going to be starting a bird list. And that is my very first bird in the bush. So thank you very much, Mr. Magpie Shrike, for being the first bird on my bird list. I thought that it would be a really good idea if we could, work together, basically, at the beginning of my time here at Djuma. Was thinking of ways in which I can connect with my viewers. And, since it's been a long time... Oh, there goes can you see the little mongoose? Can you see it? Not seeing it. There was a little dwarf mongoose that ran across there. Yeah, it left. A sweet little dwarf mongoose just ran across the road. But as I was saying, I would love to start a bird list with everyone because I haven't been here for a while, and I would love to just begin to develop the list and see where we can go in the first cycle of my time here. So I'm going to write down in my little blue book where I've already written some notes when I was on James's drive this morning. I'm going to say number 1, magpie shrike. Once again, I'm going to say, if you would like to ask any questions or talk to me about the bird, what you know about the magpie shrike, please Twitter it in and ask me, and we can have a little chat. But on that, let's carry on into the beautiful wilderness and see what other beautiful birds we can see today. My favorite bird is a black-headed oriole, and I heard the black-headed oriole yesterday, and I was very excited. That gave me a great feeling. So I would love to see that bird. I mean, it's my favorite bird within the Sabi Sands area. So if we see that together, I'll be extremely excited. But my favorite bird overall is the black eagle, where I was just last week. I was sitting last week in the Cederberg Mountains for my stepmother's 50th, Michaela Strachan, who's also a presenter. She's a presenter for Spring Watch and Autumn Watch and Winter Watch in the UK, and it was just incredible it is incredible to have a stepmother who's in the industry of presenting and is able to help me. What have you seen, Jean-Ray? The mongoose. He's gone. Jean-Ray has got eyes like a owl, seeing everything that I'm not seeing right now. But yes, let's continue on the bird hunt and see what we can find out there. Hello, Monique in London. Welcome to Safari Live. I'm pretty sure you've probably been here a few times more than me, but my favorite bird was the black eagle, but my favorite animal to view is probably the wild dog. I know a lot of people would say that, but I just have probably the most exciting experience I've ever had, when viewing them on a vehicle, because they're so interactive. And when you find wild dogs, it's super exciting. They're moving quickly, and that it was just that particular day. I just arrived in the bush many years ago, or 2 years ago, and myself and my best friend Donovan were driving either side of each other, and these wild dogs were going crazy because they had just spotted impala in the distance. And as you know, impala won't stick around. When they see a wild dog, they will run a good distance. That's a cool fact to know. An impala, like I saw this morning with I think it was called the Nkuhumas, if I said that right. I hope so. Nkuhumas, thanks, Andre. When I was sitting with them, the impala was standing there and they were making a noise. Bah! Can't really do it well, but it's a bark, and they bark at the lions to say, listen, I'm over here. I can see you, I'm not going to run away from you. And that's when the lions become a little bit, they can't really attack when they realize that. But with the wild dogs, cheap as they get, they will go, and the antelope will run a distance, and wild dogs will chase them down. And so, the chase is such an exciting experience to watch. And I'll never forget that day. It was actually 11 wild dogs, and they all went in their separate directions. And then we found the pack a little bit later. It was 10 of them that we found just sitting there. And one of them was missing. There was 11 in the pack, and one of them was missing. We didn't know where it was, and then eventually one of the rangers went on the other side, and they found. I think we've got a buffalo over there. I'll see if I can get round. He found one of the last wild dogs sitting there with the impala, and it hadn't started eating it. It had blood all over its face, but it didn't start eating, and it was incredible because. He didn't start eating it on his own. He waited for the pack, and then they ate it together, and they ate it very quickly together. So it was very exciting. But once again, to our left are the beautiful dagger boys, otherwise known as the buffalo. One of the most dangerous species to see on foot. I've had a few experiences with these animals. When I was at foot, when I did my long walks at Londolozi, I definitely got my heart racing. But look how nice and cool it looks in there. Eh? I just think back on one of those days where it's been so hot, and you just went and you jumped in that ice cold pool, and you felt so great with life. Hey, can you feel that? Can you feel that they're feeling that? I feel that. They're having a nice little dip in the pool. But it really is incredible to be back here where the water's out and where they're all relaxing in this water. They looked really distressed when there was no water. And often buffalo can, from what I've been told, the Nkuhumas love the buffalo to eat. And when there's not much space for water, the old dagger boys are, the ones that go because they become blind and they're a lot more tired, and so it's a much easier kill for the lions. But what's really interesting about buffaloes is that they as they get older, obviously there's herds. So you've seen the herds over time, and that's something I'm excited to see in the near future. But you can imagine in those herds, you know, the old ones, you know, eventually get too old to stay with the herds, and so they go into the grassy, lushy areas where they can eat the grass, you know, because their teeth also become quite old. And so not only do they become blind, slow, and old, you know, they really just have a difficult time, and so that's why they're taken out by the lions. And that's the scary thing when you're on foot and you come across one of these old guys. It's really quite scary, because sometimes it's better to fight than flee for them, because they can't run, so they will just run. So wherever you are, if you're going out into the bush, please be aware of the buffalo. You know, they're strong, powerful animals, even though they look like they've got that nice, cute little horns. They can be quite vicious at times. But that's another beautiful sighting of the buffalo. 3 sightings of swimming buffaloes. Well, not quite swimming, but relaxing, enjoying the afternoon swim. And they'll most probably spend the rest of the afternoon here. But while we've had this sighting, oh, look at the little buff just down there. Can you see him? He's got a little oxpecker on his back, and I think he's doing really well out of the group of them, because he's got the shade as well. So he's really looking after himself over there. But with that, I'm going to carry on into this thicket, into the wilderness, and I'm going to link you to James. See you later.
There, everyone, is either a greater blue-eared glossy starling or a Cape glossy starling. Now, if you listen very carefully, you can hear it. You can hear what it is. Of course, it has stopped speaking now. I'm going to play you the call of the Cape glossy starling. I always remember this because it sounds to me like it's saying, Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling. Here it goes. See, Cape glossy starling. There we go, Cape glossy starling. All right, now, the other one that looks very similar, of course, to that is the greater blue-eared glossy starling, and that one says, blue, blue. See, blue. And that's how I remember the difference, because if you see them sitting next to each other, they look almost completely identical unless you have them in this kind of light. Now, in this kind of light, what you can see behind the eye of that Cape glossy starling is the fact that it doesn't have a very obvious blue ear covert. Yeah, he's perfectly showing it to us. You see, behind his eye, his head is a uniform blue-green color. And remember that color that he's sort of shining there, is that turquoisey blue and green, is not blue and green at all. It's a trick of the light played by specially placed crystals of keratin and melanin within those feathers. So it absorbs all the other wavelengths except the green and blue ones, and that's why it looks green and blue. No pigment of green and blue in that bird at all, which I just find astonishing. That is the Cape glossy starling. Now, Andrew is hailing me on the radio. I'm just going to quickly talk to him while we drive along. We haven't found any leopard tracks just yet. Go ahead, Andrew. I've left them, Andrew. If you just drive along the Mvubu Road into the drainage line north of the dam, and you'll see them right there in the drainage line on the we shall be going in the next few weeks. Can't wait for that. I'm just helping him into a sighting of those lions, which hopefully he will be able to find without quite the same effort we took to find them. So it's like let down like that, where you go and you find them on foot and they're where you predicted they would be, and then you drive around on the road, and the easiest thing would have been just to drive along the road and then you would have seen them. Now, Jamie had tracks of Karula heading in this sort of general direction today. If she was heading south, there were no tracks of her cubs this morning, so they're obviously not traveling with her just yet. But I suspect she probably would have continued south back to them. So we might get her sort of on the way there if she's killed, but I suspect she's probably gone across already. I just can't wait for her to bring them across and introduce them to us. And I think that she will do that simply because she's basically inside Tundi's territory at the moment. And it's going to be slightly awkward for her. They are related, of course, and that means that they will tolerate each other. And they were unlikely to have a violent conflict. But I think she would like a bit of privacy, I'm sure, once those cubs are able to move. Magic light here. And the sound you can hear is fork-tailed drongos having a little bit of a fight with each other. No, never mind, Brian. I think we'll make everybody very seasick if we try and track those things. No, it's gone. It was a white-browed scrub robin stopped right close to the road, and we hear them all the time. So seldom see them. And it's the male that will be calling. He will be advertising himself so that he can attract ladies into his territory and frighten away potential rivals. Much the same reason for my playing my guitar. Hello, Jacob. You're a new viewer. I'm just quickly turning the Game Drive radio. It's very lovely to have you with us, and you want to know if we are in South Africa's national park. Well, Jacob, South Africa has over 20 national parks. We are indeed in the biggest, though, and that is the iconic Kruger National Park, which is in the northeastern corner of South Africa, and that is part of a much bigger trans-frontier conservation area, which means it's an conservation area that extends across national boundaries. It goes east into Mozambique and north up into Zimbabwe, and it's called the Greater Limpopo Trans-Frontier Park. So we're part of that. It's 8 million acres, Jacob. 8 million acres we're part of. We obviously can't traverse that, all 8 million of those acres. We're traversing just 4,000 of them on the western fringes in South Africa. Thank you, Jacob. Please keep watching. And any other questions that anybody might have about South Africa, or indeed the continent of Africa, please feel free to send them through. There are lots and lots of misconceptions about this country. There are lots and lots of misconceptions about the continent. And especially when we talk about the size of Africa. Africa, of course, is much, much bigger than the continental United States. And that means that it is extremely varied. So when people say, well, you know, I've been to Africa, it's like saying, well, I've been to North America, or I've been to South America, which means you could have gone to Peru, you could have gone to Brazil, or Argentina, or Ecuador, or Bolivia, or Guyana, or any of those other places, which are so totally distinct from each other. It's a magnificent continent. And we, of course, are in the most magnificent part of it, aren't we, Brian? South Africa. And we're now heading towards Treehouse Waterhole. And I think Sam has actually got a hippo to show you before we get to the water. Let's go and see.
Hello everyone, we are sitting here with a hippo. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. We drove on the other side of this dam earlier, and I didn't see the hippo. I saw the 4 buffaloes. So there, in the middle, sits the beautiful hippo. And while I was here, everyone, I found a blacksmith plover. I wrote it down, but I am not going to write it down. I'm actually going to cross it out because I really actually want to experience it with you. So I'm going to cross out the blacksmith plover, which I saw. But it's not real until you see it, I guess. But here I am. I'm sitting by a hippo, and I just want to. One of my favorite storytellers of the hippo. Oh no, where's it? Can you hear that? Oh, there it is. All right, guys, can you see the two blacksmith plovers that are on the other side? I literally just crossed it out. I'm going to write it back on my list. You know what's awesome about a blacksmith plover is the way in which you can tell that it's a blacksmith plover is the way in which it tinks. It sounds like it's hitting metal. And that's the way in which the trainee taught me how to learn the blacksmith plover. So whenever I'm walking in the bush and I hear that tink, 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 it's our old friend, the blacksmith plover. So here we go. Blacksmith plover. And something that I'm extremely, extremely fond of, as we go back to the hippo, just in the middle of the dam here, is storytelling. Something I really enjoy is storytelling. Storytelling in the past, with the Bushmen, where I studied up in the Cederberg Mountains, and I learned the world is through storytelling. And I think it'll be nice if on my first drive, I tell a little quick story about the hippo and how the hippo is in the water. And it's actually my favorite story, and it's one story that I've said the most. If any of my friends are watching, they'll know I've said this story a few times. But try and imagine this, okay? So the hippo, many, many, many years ago, never used to sit in the watering hole as it is at the moment. It actually used to be a land animal. But it got so hot. It used to walk around the savannah and be so hot, and it would secrete a little pink substance that would act as a sun cream, and it would literally hop from tree to tree in the shade to try and get away from the sun. It was having a very, very, very difficult time. And one day the hippo decided to pluck up some courage and say, I'm actually going to see if I can go to the water gods, which to my knowledge is the otter, the kingfisher, and I think it's the fish eagle. But I can come back to you on that one. So he went up to the three water guards, and he said, please, 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 can I get out of the sun and into the water? And the guards looked at the hippo and said, hippo, to be honest with you, you're quite a big dude, and lady dude, you're a big hippo. And I don't think I can grant you the access to this water. You're just going to eat all of the fish. We can't let you eat all the fish. What are we going to eat? And what is everything else going to eat? You're going to destroy this ecology, this ecosystem. So the hippo put down his head and he was like, oh, man, I'm so sad. And, he looked really, really sad. And he looked up at the watering gods and he just said, please, I'm really struggling and I need your help. So the gods took pity on Hippo and said, Hippo, we'll grant you permission to go into the watering holes, but you are not allowed to eat any of the fish. And you see those canines that you have? They're big canines. One day when we have an opportunity to look at a hippo and see their canines, we can see that they have huge teeth. And you cannot eat any of the fish out there. You have to come out onto the land and eat grass. And to this day, the hippo now, you'll see it's in the watering hole at the moment. But at night time, the hippo is going to come out of the watering hole and it's going to exit into the bushveld and it's going to graze on grass. And to prove to the gods that the hippo no longer eats fish in the water, he sprays his dung on the floor to show the gods there are no fish bones in his poo. So that is a little story of the hippo. And that's something that during my time here at Wild Earth, I would love to tell you more stories about, everything that's here, because that's, that was an interest of mine during my master's. I was studying about the relationship of the natural world and how, the Bushmen used to have such a deep relationship. I mean, they used to talk about, lightning and thunder as two brothers quarreling. So it's a magical way to see wildlife. And through that story I told you, you would have learned some very important things, like from the fact that hippos excrete a pink substance on their body to protect them from the harmful rays of the sun, to the fact that they spray their dung on the floor and they go out at night time. So storytelling within education is actually quite important, because it, not only tells and engages an audience, but it also emits a very, very pertinent education on people. So that was the story of the hippo. You've seen a blacksmith plover, you've seen a hippo, you've seen some buffaloes.